This Christmas, I've been doing this separate little segment at the start of each sermon, and I've been doing this separate little segment called Random Important Christian Christmas History Facts. And I want to talk about something today that I talked a little bit about last year, but there's a couple of things I didn't get a chance to get to last year, so I want to squeeze those in again and make sure we all have a little bit of an understanding, because I think it's important for us to know some of these things. And the one I want to talk about today is, why is Christmas on December 25th? And like I said, last year I talked a little bit about this, but there's a couple of things I wasn't able to squeeze in there. And so I wanted to come back to it this year. Now, many people, I don't know what most of you think, and if we did a survey, what people would think about this, but a lot of people, a lot of Christians have this idea that the reason we celebrate Christmas on December 25th is because there was a pagan festival of some kind on December 25th in the past, and then as Christians we kind of took over it and turned that into Christmas, all right? Now, by the way, even if that was what had happened, there'd be nothing wrong with that. We Christians have a long and illustrious history of taking pagan holidays and pagan rituals like Christmas trees and turning them, Christianizing them, all right? And I, for one, believe that since God owns the whole earth and God is stronger, the one who is in us is stronger than he that is in the world, so I have no problem with us taking pagan things and turning them Christian. But in this case, the fact that the Romans did have a pagan holiday on December 25th, and they even did some gift giving, some of them did, and it was called Sol Invictus. It was all about the unconquered sun and all that sort of stuff. But the fact that they had that holiday on December 25th is actually just a coincidence. And that is not why we as Christians celebrate on December 25th. All right? The reason we celebrate on December 25th, and some of this, again, I mentioned last year, but the reason we celebrate on December 25th actually has to do with March 25th. And you say, well, what on earth happened on March 25th? Well, when you look in the Bible, when you read the Bible in the Gospels, all right, and for those of you who are new to Christianity, I've been trying to go over some of this territory this last month. For those of you who are new to the Christian faith or have never opened a physical Bible, the first 4 books of the New Testament are what we call the Gospels. They are all about Jesus' life: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now, none of the 4 Gospels give us any information about the date of Jesus' birth. But all 4 of them definitely give us the information about Jesus' death and when he died, which was the Jewish holiday of what? Shout it out. Passover. All right, so most important Jewish holiday of the year is Passover. It's when Jews then and now celebrate the Exodus story, right? When Moses led the people of Israel out of Egypt. Now, the Jews celebrate Passover. Where does Passover fall on the calendar? Well, the Jews, on the Jewish calendar, Passover falls every year on the date of the 14th of Nisan, just like the car. All right? So on the 14th of Nisan, that's the Jewish calendar. That is when Passover is. That is when Jews celebrate, Moses leading the people of Israel out of Egypt. Now, here's the problem. The Jewish calendar is a lunar and was a lunar calendar. Okay? Lots of ancient peoples base their calendars off of the cycles of the moon. That's what a lunar calendar is. Now, the problem is that a lunar calendar, because it's based on the moon, so you're going, where is this going? So if you're interested in this, great. If you're not, just give me 10 seconds, all right? What does it matter if there's a lunar cycle? Okay, so a lunar calendar is not the same as our calendar, which is a solar calendar based on 365 days, how long it takes us to get around the sun. So if you want to calculate when a date on a lunar calendar is according to our calendar, you have to do some calculations because the dates will change, all right? Because when the full moon happens on a lunar calendar will change on a solar calendar. By the way, a little bit of information here. I know I sometimes hear people frustrated at Easter time because they wonder, why does Easter change every year? Why can't we just plan in advance which Sunday Easter is, and that's when we celebrate Easter? The reason Easter changes every year, and it can swing wildly from end of March to end of April, it can be a whole month-long gap, is because Easter is calculated based on the lunar calendar, because Easter comes from Passover. All right? Now, in the 2nd century AD, curious Christians wanted to figure out on the solar calendar, what date did Jesus die on the cross? So taking Passover, and they took a guess at which year Jesus died in. They were probably wrong. But based on those calculations, they came up with a calculation that Jesus was crucified on March 25th. All right? So they came up with this date in the 2nd century. We think Jesus was crucified on March 25th. Now, here's the thing about people living in those days. They loved patterns on calendars. So the moment they thought, okay, we calculated Jesus died on March 25th, then they think to themselves, well, that's such an important date. Obviously, that can't be the only thing that happened on March 25th. To them, obviously, not to us. So they thought to themselves, well, what would be more poetic than if Jesus' life started on the same day that his life ended? So this idea comes in the 2nd century. Christian writers and thinkers start to get this idea that not only did Jesus die on March 25th, his life started on March 25th. And based on that, now you say, okay, so now they're saying that he was born on March 25th. No. The Christians said, no, Jesus, your life doesn't start when you're born. It starts when you're conceived. We could talk a whole thing about that on the pro-life thing, right? But anyway, early Christians said, well, then the day that the Holy Spirit conceived Jesus in Mary's womb was the same day that Jesus would have died, which would be March 25th. And as the years went on, they added more and more stuff. March 25th became this important time when Christians said, that must be when God created the world. That must be when the fall of Adam and Eve happened. That's when Jesus must have been conceived in Mary's womb. And then that's based on their calculations when Jesus died. And all of this has no basis in actual history. This is just how they loved patterns on the calendar. All right? So you say, well, then how did we end up with December 25th? Well, how long is a typical pregnancy? 9 months. Just a little bit of biology there for some of you. It's 9 months, right? And hopefully for those of you who are pregnant, it's like not a day longer. So if Jesus was conceived on March 25th and we add 9 months, what do we get? We get December 25th. And that's how early Christians came to think of December 25th as Christmas. Now, again, I have no problems. Like there's a common myth out there, oh yeah, we do this because it was a pagan celebration. Even if that was true, it wouldn't be bad. But why I think this is important at Christmas time is because it reminds us again that for early Christians and for our faith centers around the cross, not the manger, right? Our faith starts with the crucifixion and the resurrection, not with Christmas. It revolves around Easter. So 2nd century Christians, that's what it was all about for them. It was about the crucifixion. From there, they made some assumptions about the conception, and then they added 9 months, and that's why we have December 25th. Anyway, that was this year's final segment of random, important Christian Christmas history facts.